Hello, and we are live coming at you in full color. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and light up some Bakor.
Oh, please.
Okay, and we are lighting up the Black Oud tonight.
Oh, oh.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
That's just a favorite now, honestly.
You hear that crackling?
Yeah. Might be a couple spirits. You never know.
Okay. Come get these blessings, y'all. Anti Jadom Jayed Habibis. Leila Sayeda. Inshallah. Get you these blessings. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, yep, yep. Yep, yep, yep. Uh-huh. Hello, Ace. Hello, Joanna. Hello, Hale. Thank you for joining. So I have my wonderful co-host on my live tonight. Okay. And we are going live quite late. So some of you may be watching this as an instant replay, if you will. Okay. It'll be available 24 hours after the recording. Okay. On YouTube, on my channel, Jasmine Ambrosia. Make sure you check out those links down below. But without any further ado, would you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Sydney, also under my business name, Craft and Magic. I teach the Elder Futhark Runes crash course on the Norse precursor class, as well as the Advanced Bind Runes class.
And you guys might recognize Sydney from the As the Cauldron Bubbles podcast.
Hello. How your mama now?
Hey, how your mom and him? So we just want Sam, how are you, Habibi? Thank you for joining. Sam Jobs here. Okay. Okay. Live coming at you in full color. Okay. Okay. So what I wanted to talk about with you guys today is some of the upcoming witch school stuff that we have at the shop, at the store. Okay. So moving into 2021, I have been working on getting our metaphysical and occult classes updated and scheduled. So starting January 13th of 2021 at 7 p.m. on Wednesday for 5 consecutive Wednesdays, we have the Beginner's Astrology course, also known as the BAC. BAC. Sydney, you want to talk a little bit about your experience with BAC and why it's so beneficial to learn this astrology?
So my experience with back or like beginner's astrology for your class, um, essentially, I got to have a better understanding of how the planets correlate with the zodiac, which also in turn helped me to learn how to read natal charts. And also, for those who end up taking the advanced astrology, that which honestly helped me too, because I was able to kind of pick apart my own chart and also able to gain the experience to read other people's charts and get more feedback on are the interpretations that I'm making about like the house of Capricorn with, maybe Venus and Capricorn, are these correlating? Am I saying this correctly? Am I able to, you know, create a chart and do my own natal chart readings? And sure enough, I've had a couple since then. Um, and as a girl, on the go, and as a single Pringle, I do use it when I'm reading for these men folk. Because I mean, how else are you going to put into work if you don't use it? Because it's kind of like if you don't use it, you lose it after a while.
So Ace is saying, I know from taking your tarot and palmistry courses, I should have taken back first. I definitely feel like, and we talk about this in Witch School, but I definitely think that having a solid foundation in astrology is going to help you in the craft, period.
Mhm.
Whether it's runes, tarot, palmistry, cartomancy, spell work, whatever. Like astrology is kind of like the glue that binds all of the craft together. So if you have even just like a base level understanding, a beginner's level understanding, dare I say, a back in astrology, then you are going to set yourself up for success with not only your spell work, but also your divination. Because astrology really is the glue that kind of holds everything together. And Crafton, I feel like you can kind of vouch for me when I say this, but I feel like astrology is like the mathematics of the occult world. And when you get into like astrology in the terms of understanding the 12 zodiac, that is very much our addition and subtraction when it comes to the occult. But then when you get into your houses and planets, that's kind of more like your multiplication and division. But then when you get into your houses and your planets and your zodiac, that's kind of more like your algebra because you're making those equations. And then when you get into your synastry of making a chart for you and your partner or your friends or your group of friends or your coworkers, or dare I say, an event like a moving day,
Okay.
that's kind of more like your pre-calculus level occult. Would you agree?
I would agree, yeah, because it's kind of um like learning about astrology is one thing, but it's like practice that you use by understanding a natal chart. And those full like 5 weeks of like getting to know those zodiacs along with those 12 planets, along with those houses, it's a game changer. Especially if you are doing spell work. Let's say a dark moon in Gemini. You know what I mean? That's gonna be a lot different than a full moon in Gemini. Because full moons, you're here to manifest, but on dark moons, you're here to get or banish or, take more control or maybe rest.
Or the hex work?
Hello. I'm here for the left hand tea all the time. But overall, like it really gives you a better background and understanding of the zodiac, but also too, and how you interact with it in divination too. I mean, I always remember like the emperor is the Aries, and you can see it in the symbol. The Empress is always going to have Venus because we're talking about that nurturing, loving energy. The Hermit is always going to have that Virgo energy, a finding, the soul seek, very much like taking on your own journey through the craft. Like you I'm not saying you can't get that from an oracle standpoint, but the language is there to give you the words that you need to facilitate a better reading.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you
Mm-hmm.
can look at that picture oracally all you want, especially in the tarot, but it means a lot differently, or it hits a lot differently for your clients in your readings when you're like, here's the backup knowledge though of this
Now,
card.
now, Crafton, I'm going to cut you off. Let's go back to the back.
Okay.
Okay, back to back, back to back. Happy tea. So the beginner's astrology course. What was, because you've taken this course,
Mhm.
and I hope to have you as a guest in the
Yeah.
course. Okay, what was your experience taking the beginner's astrology course?
Um, well, you already kind of seen like the outskirts of it, but essentially I was trying to get a better understanding of astrology because I was just kind of like, I don't know how this applies. I don't know how this works. And then, the universe kind of like slapped me in the face and gave me a full book on astrology, and I was like, well, shit, there's a lot more than I thought. So when I went and took back, I had more like, I guess, like a underlining understanding, at least of the zodiac. But when it came to the planets, that was literally like a whole new world. I also felt like too, um, I'm a person who definitely has to like keep going to understand things. I definitely have to be more hands-on. I had to look at more charts. Like, of course, you have the material to teach, but I also had to do my own work to be like,
Mhm.
how am I going to keep this ingrained in my mind?
And too, like back is such a quick moving course
Mm-hmm.
that you have to do that work outside the classroom. I feel like to really get the most out of it.
Absolutely. Like how can I say, you can't leave it alone. And especially too, in the world of occultism and like mysticism and all these other types of forms of language, it really starts to resonate in the work that you do. I feel like my spell work has come a long way because now I have a better understanding of the zodiac. I will say too, like, I continuously learn because I think is the point of being on the spiral path of learning about these different systems and places because you continue to learn. I'm always going to remember that the MC is where the 10th house is. I'm always going to remember that the I is between the third and the fourth house, Gemini and Cancer. My ascending is always going to be to my left. Where I'm going, my DC is always going to be on my right. I know my four cardinal directions. Now,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what do you feel like really stuck with you? You talked about knowing your cardinal points in a natal chart, but after taking back, what do you still use in your practice?
that's kind of hard because I feel as though I still sit on the creator preserver uh oh cardinal, so cardinal the initiator, preserver the and mutable, the creator destroyer. I sit on that the most because I think of that in terms of my more of my lunar magic. Because I'm like, if it's a mutable moon, it's gonna be something that I'm gonna have to learn how to adapt to. It's gonna be something that moves quick. If it's an
Hmm.
initiating moon, I'm like, okay, we're at the start of a project. This is the best moon to initiate this new idea and let it come to life and manifest during this moon. This is the best time to plant the seed. The fixing moons, I'm like, okay, the Aquarius, okay, the Scorpio, okay, the Taurus. These are the times where I need to maintain that work. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I sit on those probably the most. Um And sinistry too. Sinistry is really big for me because I like to see where's a compatibility. Where am I going to have kind of like a um not even just as a single Pringle, but like as a person and like in being in different groups, how do I know if I'm gonna mesh well with certain people? Or if we're gonna have any challenges, how can I overcome them? I'm like, oh, so
Absolutely.
your Venus is a little bit more like, let's say, like in Cancer. Okay, like in the fifth house. Okay, you like to have a good time. You very much are initiating all new ideas into your relationships. You definitely want to try new things, and it's a little bit more leisure for you. But, the way my Capricorn Venus is, I'm like, well, you can just give me nice things and I'm good. But they're both cardinal. So I'm like, okay, there's a similarity, and we can have this how can you say, this kind of Gaia moment, this kind of like we can nurture each other's signs. But I've also noticed with people who have the same Venus, sometimes we kind of clash because we're kind of too much alike. So little stuff like that has really kept my mind and astrology connected.
So the next class that we have at the store starting February 17th. This is a two-part class. This is the Lunar Astrology, Magic, and the Moon. Okay. It's a two-part class on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. at Spiritual Gardens.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Now, you've taken lunar astrology.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts? What are your feelings?
Okay, for that class was literally like swept because there
Schwapped.
there's so many like students that were talking about like a blood moon and like a blue moon. I was like, well, I've heard the blue moon concept, but the sanguine moon, the blood moon,
Yeah.
that was new for me. I remember talking about the dark moons. And too, just like getting more of an idea of the indigenous names behind. That's something I'm still
Exactly.
trying to work with because I'm like, that is just something, a part of my practice that I haven't like delved into. But I feel like, especially with working with lunar astrology, it's like important because then I don't know, like I've had people like fall in my DMs and they're like, did you know it's going to be the morning moon, morning with a U, like the let go and let the gods kind of play this kind of whole shebang when it comes to this moon. And I'm like, what moon is that, baby? What are we talking about? Hold on, let me do my Googles. And then I'm like, oh, it's another name. You know what I mean? Like it just comes from a different indigenous tribe, or somebody gave it this cutesy buzzword name sometimes. So I'm like, okay, now I got to keep up. Um, it kind of made me. I have like the Llewellyn's like date book, but it made me also want to revisit this book I have by Dane McCoy on late. I think it's Lady of the Moon, basically on moon magic in general. And it just made me kind of revisit that because she correlated magic not only during the moon to astrology, but she also did it with runes too, and the indigenous tribe naming system. And I was just like, well, let me just add this to my book of shadow. You know what I mean? This is this valuable information.
Yeah. Yeah, I think lunar astrology is so important because it really influences our spell work. And, doing our spell work in correspondence with the natural cycles of the moon is only going to amplify what we are doing.
Hmm.
So, working our magic in alignment with how the moon is in configuration is only going to magnify our intention.
Hmm.
So, speaking
Absolutely.
of intention, the next class that we have on March 3rd at 7 p.m. is the Candle Magic Workshop. and this is a very popular workshop. Sydney, go ahead and speak on that.
Okay. So, candle magic, I took this, time is not linear, but I took it some many moons ago. And essentially, when I took it, I had my notebook filled to the brim with everything you said. I'm like, okay, that's an effigy. An effigy is actually made based upon a shape or
Right.
symbol. I'm
Yep.
like, okay. I'm like, Adam and Eve candles. Oh, you mean like the bride and groom, that you have on a cake. Interesting. Interesting. The devil. Okay, we can do a witch one. Okay, a vulva. Uh, and everything else in between. I was like, oh, okay, well, we have empathized, um, like a connection to symbolism, which is kind of how I have a love for that form of the craft is connecting with the symbol. So
And
for
who doesn't love a good candle?
right. And especially too, you have it based upon your spell work on let's say the Eve candle. You know what I mean? And let's
Okay.
you want to put, let's say you want to put an attraction spell on you. The Eve candle is perfect if you're more on the feminine. You can also do an Adam candle if you're more on the masculine. And you can give this glamour or this aura or this vibe or anything like that in your spell work. That way you're marking the candle, putting your sigils, your runes, or your intentions onto the candle. Like is a whole other experience. And just that honestly is like from that class I basically had like a good guideline to figure out how I needed to do spell work. Like pretty much after that class I did my first spell.
Well,
And I
and we also talk about chimes
mhm,
and novenas and pillars and tapers and tea lights and votives.
mhm,
Like I feel like the candle magic workshop is very in depth.
mhm,
And it really tells you how you can use candles the most efficiently and proficiently in your craft and in your practice to manifest your personal will upon your reality.
mhm, absolutely.
Um, okay, so after the candle magic workshop, we have brought back by Thug Demand by
Mhm,
okay, the TTC Tarot Training Course
mhm,
coming at you live March 10th. And this is a 6-week course. And now this course does have a test and a certification. You will be certified through Third Eye Fortunes in Rider Waite Smith Tarot.
mhm.
Okay. So tell them about your experience with RWS Tarot and the TTC.
Um okay, as a person, okay, basically very early on in my journey, I didn't want to learn tarot.
I think a
I
lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, I was more at the time I was very much like it was like me and my Isis Oracle and we didn't really need nobody else. You know what I mean? Like we were very mono at the time. And that was okay for me. But then when I started exploring the tarot and I was like talking to other people who they thought they knew tarot and I was just like this doesn't add up. So I took the TTC um and essentially I gained a better understanding of the major arcana because I had books that talked about tarot, but for some reason there was just like a lackluster in those like karmic transitions of your life being major arcana. And I was just like, but those are like the mysteries. Like those are kind of like the big major life events. Like why don't we have enough um, backstory on that. So my experience taking the course, I fell more in love with the Fool's Journey. I fell more in love with understanding the tarot and reading for people And then it kind of became easier for me to read for myself, because I could read for myself in one way, but tarot basically, especially in the Rider-Waite-Smith system, there's no bullshit. There's no way that you can like
It's this or it's that.
yeah, like it's very much like, oh, this person coming into your life, I see that because you could see the people of the royal court. You're like, oh, he's a knight of swords, or this person has this energy that magnifies masculine of these kind of swords. So they're very intellectual, they're very strong-willed. These people are going to fight more with their information and their facts and their reasons, as opposed to somebody who's like a knight of cups. You know what I mean? Like, it just really painted the picture. And I feel like everybody has their own intuition, and that's great when it comes to learning the but having that kind of, again, that language makes it easier for you to connect the dots. Like, oh, this Knight of Swords is coming into your life to help you with a problem that you're having when it comes to maybe, counseling. Maybe it's mental health. Maybe you need to take care of like the type of homework
Exactly.
you do, legal matters or anything like that.
Exactly. So, what was your expectations taking TTC? Like, what were you expecting as a new student?
That's kind of hard to say, but because I was literally like, I was like in those classes, and everybody basically thought I had already taken the class, and I'm like, child, no, we ain't even got there yet. Like, I understood there was a test. The test always made me nervous. Um, I have passed all the classes, but at the same time too, I was just like, good lords. Um, and I think my big expectation was basically like just being a better reader and being able to facilitate better reading. Because at the time I was still like trying to figure out my like a better average on timing and learning about time management when doing my readings. That was what I wanted to increase, you know, especially when it comes to like a lot of the readings I offer will basically either be 30 minutes or like an hour. So you really have to
Mhm.
learn how to fill up your time, but also not go over.
So, you feel like taking the TTC, one of the things that you learned the most was connecting more to the Royal Arcana and time management on your readings?
Mhm. Absolutely. Because I understood people in our life, but also it just gave it a different dimension when you look at it as the same personality types. Because a lot of
Yeah.
people, like, especially when I'm like explaining to people what these cards represent and just give them like a quick rundown, they get more interested because they're like, oh, people in your life. Well, I'm here to talk about, this man folk, this girl folk, this person, my uncle, my auntie, my uncle, and you can give a better description based upon that suit, based upon that position of that person. So you can be like, this Queen of Cups reversed, like she is really not trying to help you through your life. She's trying to almost malnourish you. She's trying to confiscate the love you have for different things. She doesn't want to nurture.
Now, I am looking at the chat here, and I will say Mitch Maven says, do you have a favorite tarot deck that you use? Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that if you are going to take the TTC, you will want to have an RWS deck.
Mhm.
RWS stands for Rider Waite Smith.
Mhm.
Okay, because that is the language of tarot that we teach at the witch school. Okay, but do you have a favorite tarot deck, Crafton?
Mm, that's rough because I have so many at this point. I would,
My favorite would be the Ink and Intuition
mm,
tarot deck.
mhm.
That would probably be my favorite. Ink and Intuition. I like how it's like a classical Sailor Jerry American tattoo style tarot deck. So that would be my favorite, probably. What's yours? If you had to pick one.
If I had to pick one, probably the Modern Witch Tarot. That one really speaks well for me because it is based upon Rider-Waite Smith, but it's not one of those, it's a Rider-Waite Smith, and then everything's like, a 5 of crystal balls or something.
Right.
I'm not against those. I'm here for those if those really work for you, but Modern Witch Tarot actually does make a classic look at the Rider-Waite and retrieves that coloring and literally changes it to be amplified, beautiful, and modern. Like the Six of Cups, where somebody is literally giving a cup to somebody who looks younger than them, it is beautiful. It's the same imagery, but just modernized. People are wearing regular clothes. People are like, your Knight of Cups is literally somebody who's more feminine presenting. You know what I mean? That's another thing too, because it includes people of color and LGBTQIA.
Hello.
And that honestly is that's my favorite deck because it's going to hit for multiple people of multiple demographics.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the last class that we have here on the class schedule is April 21st, Witch School, Spell Jars and Container Magic. Okay. Now, all of you guys can access the class schedule on the Third Eye Fortunes Facebook page under the events tab, which is linked down in the description. Okay. So, spell jars and container magic, we're basically talking about how you can use your old pickle jars, pasta jars, and how you can make magic from those jars using your intuition, be it sweet or sour. Okay. A sweet jar, a sour jar. Okay. And then sealing that intention up with a candle, using our herbs, our crystals, our oils, our roots to make our intention manifest. And that is going to be April 21st, okay, at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at the store. Okay, so thank you all so much for joining. I wanted to go over some of what we have going on at the Witch School at the store. Most of these courses and classes and workshops are going to be available for you online or in person. If you plan on attending a course or class or workshop in person, make sure that you call the store and book your spot in class because they do fill up quick. Let me tell you, they fill up quick. Okay. However, because we are in a pandemic.
Panorama.
You can also take these classes and courses online as well. Okay. And you can join our online classroom. We are coming close to a close here. So I want to just say thank you so much, Craft and Magic, for coming on the channel and talking about your experience as a previous student or continuous student, should I say.
Hello.
And thank you all so much for joining Uncle Badger, Mitch Maven, aka Morningstar, Ace, Hale. Thank you guys all so much for joining. And until next time, blessed be.
Blessed be, guys.